Hello, everyone. So welcome to our first webinar training today. Thanks for joining us. I hope everyone is okay and safe at home. My name is Karim. I'm part of the customer success team, and I will take you through the analysis tab today. Also, we have Mr. Ed James. He is our director for content and analysis. Just a quick introduction about the customer success team. So this is me with my colleagues Jill and Vladana. I'm sure that you guys might be familiar with them. They are the one who providing you with the training and support. So we work hand in hand with your account managers, and we make sure that you guys have the right guidance to use MEED Projects and MEED.com and to get the best value out of your subscription. So just sharing with you the agenda of today. We are going to cover analysis as we discussed, and the agenda is split into 3 parts. The first part is going to be presenting the analysis tool and exploring the different features and to know how we can use it to get a better understanding of the market. This will be presented by myself, and it will take around 15 to 17 minutes. Then Mr. Ed will take the lead, and he will be presenting how we can use the Excel sheet to gain more analytical tricks. This will take around 17 minutes as well. And the last part of our agenda today, it will be the Q's and A's. So you'll be able to send us your questions, and we will make our best today to cover or accommodate all of the questions that you have. Please note that you don't need to wait till the last part of the webinar to ask your question. Whenever you have a question, just click on the Q's and A's icon, write your question, it will be saved there, and we're going to cover it at the end of the webinar. One last thing before we start. At the end of the webinar, a few questions will appear, just like a multiple choice. So it will take maybe 2 minutes to answer. The answers will help us to get more ideas on how we can get better in webinars for you in the future. So thanks a lot for attending again. I will start my presentation. As you can see, the homepage of MEED is in front of us. I'm going just to put the mouse in the analysis. You can see the different subtitles that we have here. Projects, and it's extended to market index analysis, project pipeline. You can see as well project awards, extended to project award analysis. Following that, project spending, we're going to talk about the cash flow analysis. And finally is the companies, split into company rankings and company relationships. So I will start by the first, which is the project, and I will click in the market index here. So in the market index analysis, it's enabled us because this is a snapshot of all of the data captured by MEED Projects since 2012 till our day today. You can see this is the graph in front of us. By default, it's showing all the GCC countries. So you can see, for example, this red color line represents Saudi Arabia. If I put the mouse in the latest capture, you can see this number, which is 1.4 trillion US dollars. This is the total value of all of the active projects in Saudi Arabia. You can compare as well to the other countries under it, like UAE, for example, Kuwait, Qatar, etc. The most important thing about the analysis is the filters in the left-hand side, which is a common structure that is going to repeat in every analysis tab we're going to explore today. Using the filters, we'll start to customize the graph based on the information that you want to see. So let's have an example. I will click in location, and instead of GCC, I can click in the small arrow beside the sub-region. It will drop down the countries. So I will choose Saudi and UAE. Then I will go to sector. Let's say, for example, I will choose for us construction, oil, and gas. As soon as you click apply, you will see here that the graph will be customized based on the filters. So you can see the comparison between UAE and Saudi Arabia. Again, you can go here, and for example, if you want to see only UAE, you can click in Saudi Arabia icon. If you want it to reappear again, you can get it back. Bear in mind that after you set your filters, you have the option to create a saved search. So just to give an example, if I created here a saved search of market index for KSA and UAE, for example, and you can confirm the save. Next time when you're going to access your homepage, you are going to find it under the saved use dashboard. It's like a quick shortcut, better than going and repeating again the filters. So let's go back again to our graph. If I scroll more down, you can see the underlay data. In market index, we captured the data weekly, so you can go through it directly through this table. If I went up, you can as well customize the timeline by tweaking this time build so that you can get a certain period. And finally, you can download to Excel. If you want to have a more view with the underlay data or the raw data, you can click download to Excel, and it will be saved directly in your computer. I'm sure that Ed will show us more tricks with the Excel sheet. So this is how you can download it. Coming back again to the analysis, if I clicked in the projects, and this time we're going to choose together the project pipeline. In project pipeline, this is an analysis that enables us to see the upcoming value of projects that's happening in a certain sector, in a certain country. So this pie chart represents the total value of all the upcoming projects. Before we look into the chart, always remember you need to set your filters. So for example, I will click here, I will choose GCC. In the sector, I can click construction, oil and gas. And there is a trick here as well. Under sectors, you can click here in the small arrow and you will have the subsectors, just in case if you want to have more focused approach to a certain industry. So I will keep the sectors and I will keep the location. I will keep as well the stage and status open. As soon as I click apply, you can see here that our pie chart is going to be different. So what we can see here is total value, which is 1.7 trillion US dollars. This is all of the upcoming projects in the GCC split into different stages. 82% of this number is in design right now. You can see 10.6% is in the study. If you want to take away any of the, for example, if you don't want to see study and design, you can take it away from the chart. So you can see the closer state to the different stages. If you want to change the view, so for example, instead of status, I can click industry, where I can see that construction acquire 86% out of this value, which is booming comparing to oil and gas in GCC. I can split by countries. You can simply click here and you can see, for example, that Saudi Arabia is leading or the biggest contributor in the upcoming projects, followed that by UAE and all of the other countries in front. Same structure as we discussed. If I scroll down, I can see the underlay data, percentages and numbers. If I went up here, you can download that. So you have the option to download as an image. A lot of our clients are working on presentations, for example. You can have it any of these formats, copy paste it easily in your PowerPoint. You can click in the data, where you can as well choose the Excel sheet option so that you have the raw data in one Excel sheet. So coming to the analysis tab, we are done with the projects part, following the project awards. So I will click in the project award analysis. For the project award analysis, unlike the upcoming pipeline that we just experienced, this is historical data of all of the awarded and completed projects between 2 points of time. So again, as we get used to it already, we go to location and we set our filters. So again, I will choose, let's say, Qatar and Saudi. And then for the sector, you can choose anything you want. Again, I will stick construction, oil and gas. By clicking apply, it will be reflected here into the graph. And you can set the time frame. So for example, if I want to see the last 5 years, 2015, I can see here the split by stages. So for example, in 2015, in Qatar and Saudi, the total value of all of the projects got awarded, it was 9.5 billion US dollars. And this is the amount of projects that completed. If I want to see only the execution or the awarded projects, I can just press and complete, it will disappear. And you can see the different award value through the different years. I can put again complete by clicking again, and you can see the underlay data here as we discussed. Also, you can change your view based on industry. So for example, if I click on industry here, it will give us the different industries that we chose, construction, gas and oil. So you can see the difference of the award value. You can do it by sector. You can do the view as well in different, instead of here, you can put it in quarterly if you want to have more specific data. Again, you can download it to an image or an Excel if you want to see more data on that. Great. So moving on to the analysis, we come back again to the project spending, and I will click here in the cash flow analysis. Just a quick reminder, guys, please, if anyone have a question, again, don't wait till the end of the session. You can simply start putting your question in the Q&As, and we'll make sure to cover it at the end of the session. So now I went through the cash flow analysis. Cash flow is a different kind of data. We give you a different dimension, which is the cash expenditure in the project market. How we do that? In MEED, we have a formula that calculates the cash expenditure or the cash distribution between the award date in any project and the completion date, depending on the size of the project. So this graph that you're seeing in front of you is a holistic calculation of all of these projects using this formula, and we put it per year. As you can see, we split it into 3 stages: completed projects, projects in execution, and projects in pre-execution. The completed data, this is a historical, so it's an actual data. So this is the actual expenditure that happened in these projects. The execution and pre-execution is a forecast of the expenditure for the upcoming and ongoing projects right now in the market. If you scroll a bit down, you can see as well the underlay data as we discussed. If you want to customize the time, you can just tweak this time frame or this timeline to the years that you would like to see. You want to change the view, you can click in industry, quarterly. Remember as well, this is a default view. You need always to come back to the filters to choose a specific country or a specific region that you would like to see. So just let me choose here Saudi Arabia, for example, and I can just take construction on. As then you click apply, everything will be reflected here. Great. So moving on, I will come back again to the analysis tab, and finally we're going to experience together the company's analysis, which is split into the company rankings and company relationships. We'll start by the company rankings. In the company rankings, you can gain insight of who are the top players in a certain market. And this is really beneficial if you want to know who are the potential clients that you would like to reach out, who is the richest clients in the market, or who are the other competition and how they are having, or what kind of market share that they are having right now. So let me give you an example. Let's say I want to see all of the top contractors in UAE, in United Arab Emirates, in construction sector. How we can do that? We go to the left-hand side again to our filters. I will click in the small arrow to choose UAE under the GCC, and then we go to sector. If you guys notice, the most important 3 filters that we always use is actually the location, sector, stage, and status, because these are kind of the biggest impact that we have. It will be in our chart. However, in the company analysis, something really important, which is the roles, because I specified I want to see the top contractors. So I will go to the contractors tab, and I said I want to see main contractors. So I click here and choose only main contractors. As soon as we click apply, you will see here the top 10 main contractors in UAE based on the size of the projects that they are executing right now. The beautiful thing about the company rankings is that if you put the mouse on any of these blocks, you can see, for example, that in China state, the total value of projects that are executing right now is $3.06 billion. And if I want to know more about any of these, for example, ALEC, I want to know why they are the third, or I want to know more about the projects, I can click in this block and automatically the website will take me to ALEC profile, where I can go a bit down and I can see in details all of the projects that these guys are handling. So come back again to the analysis, and the last tab that we're going to explore in the companies is the company relationships. So we'll open it here, and from the name, company relationships present the relationships of the key players in a project. A key player can be developer or a project owner, contractor, consultant, or an MEP, a subcontractor, right? So you can see the split here where you can indicate the relationship, and you can see the filters in the left-hand side, like all of the analysis as well. So I will start to give you an example, click in location. And then I will take, for example, Saudi. sector. You can choose construction. And we can use in the stage and status, as we discussed, the execution, pre-execution, the 2 active stages, and then we click apply here. So as you can see, the chart is going to be uploaded, and this is kind of a busy view. So what I always advise is that make sure that you indicate only 2 relationships. This is what I do. So for example, I want to see the relationship between project owner and only the main contractor. I will unselect the consultant and I will unselect the MEP. As soon as I click reload chart, the chart will be updated only with these 2 key players that I want to see the relationship, right? If I click in Saudi Aramco, it will appear all of these matching lines, and each matching line represents a relationship with a company. If you want to see it in a better view, you can click in the company itself, and in the right-hand side, you can see here that these are the main contractors working with Saudi Aramco, and each contractor have a number of projects. And if I clicked in any of these numbers hyperlinked, so it will take you to dig more deeper about these projects done by Aramco and Sinohydro. This is for the company relationship. So again, I'm sorry I repeat myself, but if you have any question, don't forget to put it in the Q&As. I will just pass now for Mr. Ed so that he can teach us more about the Excel sheet.
Thank you, Kareem, and hello everyone. And that was, I hope, a very good and brief overview of the analysis tools that we have on the system, on the website itself. Of course, if you do have any questions in further depth about how to use these tools, you can at any time access the customer success team, speak to your account manager, and they'll be more than happy, I'm sure, to go through them. So as just to repeat what Kareem said, please use the comment box to ask any questions about any aspect of using the service that you wish to ask, and we'll do our best to answer them in this session. Actually, we've already got a couple of questions, which I'll answer now, since they're fresh in our minds, and that's going back to the cash analysis tool. Now, the question is, do you collect data from the market, or is it a formula based on project timelines? Well, for the project timelines, for the cash flow, what we do is we apply a formula and a model to each project, depending on the type of project and based on its location as well. So traditionally, as you probably all know, when a contract is awarded, the value of the contract is, of course, not all spent or given to the contractor at that once. Instead, the cash spent on a particular project is spread over time from the beginning of the project to the end. And traditionally, a contractor might get a 10% upfront payment, for example, on mobilization, and then cash spent will ramp up over time, reaching a peak just after about 2/3 of the way through a project, and then of course it will taper down to the end. So what the cash flow analysis does is apply this formula to spread out spending on projects over time as an alternative view of just looking at project spending by contract awards. It can be more reflective of what's actually being, of the performance of the market and what's actually being spent. So I hope that helps in regards to that question. I hope that's answered that. Of course, if you do want more answers in more detail about any aspect of the analytical tools or any other aspect of the MEED Projects website, then please, of course, feel free to do so now or with your account manager at any time. There's another question we've had also on cash flow analysis, which is about how we can see potentially maintenance O&M spending for oil, gas, petrochemical projects in the UAE, and if there's any tool to filter this info. So MEED Projects does, as you probably know, have an O&M section of the site, or you can use the filters to see completed projects and their O&M contractors. But unfortunately, we don't record or monitor cash spent on O&M projects. So unfortunately, while we do use the cash flow model and cash spent for live projects under construction, we don't do that for the O&M sector. But it's something we can certainly look into and come back to you with and perhaps implement in the system in due course. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen, and this screen is going to be looking at how to analyze the data on Excel. So what I've done here, I pre-prepared the data and a download on Excel. I've already taken a couple of countries in the GCC. I think I've taken oil and gas and petrochemical data downloaded from the site using filters. And I think it's important at this stage that there are two ways of filtering data generally with MEED projects. You can do it either firstly using the filters on the website before downloading your data, or you can download all the data and then filter in Excel. So I'm just going to go through here a few tips and tricks for how you can use Excel to do additional analysis of the data on the system. Now, this is just the raw data taken in the default view on the system. And first thing that you can do is apply the filter button onto all the data. So what applying that filter button does is that you can immediately, you can see these arrows on top of every column, you can immediately filter the data by a particular country or indeed any field that is represented in the Excel spreadsheet. So here, as you can see, I selected Bahrain. I can then, if I wish, I can select a particular type of project if I wish, or projects. And then I can also apply multiple filters if I wish. It doesn't have to be just on one field. I can then filter it further on a particular country, for example. Okay. So that's a pretty useful tool, many of you which you'll be pretty familiar with, but just for those of you who don't, that's a good basic way of filtering data. Now, what I also can do, in addition to removing or adding data, is I can also take things like contract value, and I can filter by largest to smallest, or indeed smallest to largest. So let's say I had all these profiles, and I can see here that I've got 87 project profiles worth $13.173 billion here. I can actually arrange them from largest to smallest, so I can just look at the largest particular projects if I wish. So that's a very basic use of Excel when looking at the raw data by filtering it like so. Now, the next level of analysis that you can do is using the inbuilt pivot function of Excel to make further analysis of the data. So what you normally do is you can select all the data by clicking on the top left-hand corner where this arrow key is. And then you can go to Insert and then click Pivot Table. And simply ignoring everything that's on here, just press OK. And immediately what happens is Excel takes all that data and it creates a pivot chart view in a new sheet here, new tab here that you can see, which allows you to then do further analysis of the data. Now, once you're onto this sheet, the amount of analysis you can do is really only limited by the fields that you've downloaded. There's so many things that you can do that the number of different combinations of data is impossible to be able to highlight and share today, but I thought I would go through some of the most common ways of how you might wish to analyze the data. So first off, why don't we look at historical contract awards? So first of all, we need a value. What we're going to measure, we're going to measure contract values. So I then left click and drag contract value into the bottom right hand table. And at the moment, I have the default setting of count of contract values. So that basically means number of contracts, not sum of contracts. I then have to change the value field settings here. And then all this is being recorded, by the way. So if you're having trouble keeping up with me, this is being recorded and you'll be able to access it in your own time and stopping and pausing as you wish in order to follow how it's done. So I want to change this contract value from number of contracts to sum of contracts. So I click on that button and I then click sum here. And you can also have average if you wish. and I click OK. And so of the data I've downloaded, the sum of the contract value is $103.6 billion. But let's say I wanted to have it by country. So then I can click country here. The countries I selected are the GCC, and I would bring that down into the rows box. And then I can see of the data I've downloaded, I have all the breakdown of the contract values by country. Next, maybe I want to do that data by year. I want to see how that spending was spent over time. And I can take this award year filter here, and I can bring it down like so. And here I've got the spending over time for the data I've downloaded over these years. Now, as you can see, this contract value is only used on awarded contracts. So unsurprisingly, I'm not going to have any values going forward. To clean up this table, I can simply click the award year, and I can select what years I want. Maybe I'm only interested in the last 4 years, so I can then just click the data and I can filter it down to the years I'm interested in. Now, I know many of you will use the data from MEED projects for presentations, and as Kareem showed, you can take screen grabs or JPEG options for the data presented on the website, but you can also do it using Excel as well. If I wanted to make a graph, it's very straightforward. Having done this pivoting of data, I can then just highlight the years and countries I want, like so, and go to Insert, click on Recommended Charts, and the recommended chart by Excel comes straight up, and I can select that, click OK, and then I've got my graph already made for me. Now, it doesn't stop there. Let's say I wanted to look at it in a different way. I can right-click that same graph, and I can change chart type. And instead of having a simple bar chart like that, I can have it stacked, like so. I can have it 100% stacked. I can even, if I wish, can have 3D columns. Play around with that as you wish. I can also have it in a pie chart, if I so wish. Depending on the data that you use, you can have it horizontally like so. So the options are fairly limitless when you've got the data into Excel. Now, another very neat feature of Excel is that it allows me, by doing this pivot, I've automatically filtered or arranged the projects that fall under the data provided in this pivot chart. So in 2019, I can see that Saudi Arabia made $25 billion of contract awards in the sectors of my choice. What I can do is simply double click this data and that number, and those actual projects which constitute that number, that 24 billion, automatically appear. So I've automatically already can see what constitutes that data. And that's really, really neat, should I wish to examine that in more detail. Now, something else I might want to do is, okay, I might want to ignore some countries, or I might want to ignore certain sectors. I have a filter tab here. So at the moment, I've got 3 industries. Now, let's say I wanted this to exclude oil. So I can just click chemical and gas, untick oil, and then I've removed oil from this data. So automatically the numbers change as you would expect. Now I could go on and on and on here about how I can do different things with the data. I could bring award year into the same chart here, into the same axis category. So here you can see it spread out like so. I can even look at country regions instead. If I really want to go into in-depth about how the numbers can change. And as you can see here, I've got an almost unlimited amount of filtering I can do on the system using Excel. I don't want to spend too long because I can literally go on and on about what can be done here. Now, going back to projects, again, let's say I wanted to see last year in the GCC, what were the largest projects awarded? So again, I can just go contract value, largest to smallest, and here I have the largest projects awarded in the sectors of that I selected in my download appearing here. To make things easier, what I can do, if it gets unwieldy, I can simply click and hide the data, and then I've got everything that I need. Now, maybe I want to know what are the biggest future projects coming up, in which case I would go to the project status, I would remove execution, and I would say what are the main projects in main contract bid, main contract PQ, and bid evaluation. I click those, and now all I've got on this table, the spreadsheet, are those projects. I can then go to net project value, which is what I use to understand future projects. I can click largest to smallest, and here I have the largest projects in tender right now in the GCC in oil, gas, and petrochemicals, and here I have them all. If I just want a quick view on what the value of that is, I can simply click the top of the column, and Excel automatically totals that, and I can see that there were 30 projects in these filter criteria worth $15.75 billion. And of course, if I wish to learn more about what those individual projects are, I can simply click on each one, which will take me to the website. I could copy and paste it in if I wish. And if I wish to remove the filters, I can just press clear. So as you can see, using the pivot tool, I can create an almost unlimited amount of data or options and graphs, should I wish, to use that data to turn it into meaningful analysis, whether it's in PowerPoint or whether it's in a Word document. You can then copy and paste the graphs and the data to serve your individual needs, depending on what sectors you're interested in, what markets you're interested in too. And it's also worth noting that in addition to the raw data that is exported to Excel when you do a download, you also have an automatic projects pivot table created in a separate tab by MEED Projects in Excel. So we already have, as a default view, countries and the status of the projects that you've downloaded, plus a grand total or total auto sum of the data that you've extracted. Here we have the sectors that you've extracted, and here we have the statuses of them. So if you wish, you can also just go to this Projects Pivot tab and start playing with your filters there and then. It can be quite tricky at first using Excel and these pivots, but it's well worth persevering with and playing around with, and eventually it becomes second nature as to how you can use it. Likewise, here I've got projects with roles already defaulted with company names, for example. And again, if I wish to apply a filter and only look at certain companies, well, I can just choose, I don't know, let's say Técnicas Reunidas. I can look at only the projects where Técnicas Reunidas is involved. And let's say I'm interested in projects where Técnicas Reunidas is a contractor. I can then filter further, and I can see these are the projects TR are working on currently, along with some contacts, should I wish, and any other data that you've extracted. Similarly, I've got a tab for projects with events, should I wish, and also by various capacities. So, for example, if I'm looking at oil field developments, I may wish to filter by projects only which produce oil, or look at pipelines by the distance of the pipeline. I can just click here, and I've got all the filters for pipelines and the distance. As you can see here, of the data I downloaded, there's a huge amount of large distance of pipelines, 18,282 pipeline kilometers here on this data that I've exported. So you can see how, if you wanted to know the projected value of pipe required among major projects in Saudi Arabia oil and gas industry, for example, you can do your filter in the system on MEED Projects. You can pick your country, your types of projects, and then you can just simply use this tool to understand what the future requirements are, as long as the data is on the system. So you can see how that can be highly useful for doing further analysis on the system. Okay, so I think I have come to the end of that. So now we're going to answer some additional questions that you might have, and let's take a look. But first, before we do so, I'd like to do a quick poll of this webinar and how you found it. Nabil, if you could put up the poll. If we could ask you to please just answer the poll, and then we can ensure that we can improve the training sessions every time we do them. So the first question should be up in front of you. You should be able to see how was today's training. If you could just give us a ranking, please. It's anonymous, so we're not going to come down on you or chase you up on them. Don't have to worry about that. And then click submit. There were 4 poll questions, so that was the first one. Is there another one coming? There's a second one. Would you like to book a training session with your customer success manager for a deeper understanding, just to follow up on this training? Please let us know. And next question. If you're not a subscriber to MEED Projects yet, would you like to learn more on how to gain access? Again, if you could just fill that out, please. And then we've got one final question, poll question, before we start answering the Q&A. And please use this time to submit your questions, if you have any. If there's anything that you weren't clear on in the presentations we just done, and then please let us know, and we can go back to them and explain in maybe a bit more detail. As I said, we are recording this webinar. As you can see, there's a recording button on the top. You can see this in your own time. We're recording it. You'll be able to view it and look at it in more detail, more slowly, should you wish. Okay, well, thank you very much for answering those poll questions. Now let's answer your questions on using some of the data. Now, perhaps there's a first question which maybe Kareem, you could answer here. And that is there an option to find out who is the shoring contractor for each project? So basically the foundation, shoring, earthworks contractor. Kareem, is there, can you perhaps you'd like to highlight on this how that can be done?
So, thanks a lot, Warren, for the question. So in MEED Projects, we have like key major companies or roles that we're covering when it comes to providing the data. So we have the developer / owner, we have the consultant, and we have as well the main contractor. Sometimes you'll find some major subcontractors.
Kareem, perhaps you could share your screen and show on MEED Projects how you would find the foundation contractor.
Definitely. So let me just share the screen quickly.
Because it's quite straightforward, actually. I think.
So just like I clicked in the projects tab, right? So any of these projects, these are the filters that we done. So let me just take a quick example. And for the sector, take oil and gas, for example. and then the active projects here from the status. And then you can click apply. So if I went through any of these projects, let's say this one, this is the data of the project in details. It's split into sections, general information, timeline of the project. But what we're looking for, Warren, here is this part when it comes to companies and contacts. These are the key players that we mentioned when it comes to the project, the owner, and the contacts, the feed, which is the consultant of the project. And the main contractor will give you 3 stages: the pre-qualified, which is the shortlisted contractors by the owner, the bidding, who actually bidded, the bidders who actually bidded for this, and the winner or the awarded contractor, which is Technicus in this case. So sometimes you will find here another layer of subcontractor. Shoring is not as common that we cover. However, if I'm in your place, I can always go up here, click in Contact Researcher, and then you can choose here the topics that you want to ask the researcher about. The one that we are experiencing now is companies and contacts, because we're asking about the shoring contract for a specific project. You can mention that to the researcher that you're looking for this, and they will reach out to the source in the project. It's a best effort base, so they will reach out, dig deeper, try to get to this subcontractor contact, and come back to you via an email. So this is one of the things that you can do if you didn't find the contact that you want in the profile of the project. Ed, you would like to add anything to that?
Yeah, maybe just a small thing. Of course, as you saw from my Excel spreadsheet earlier, you're not going to get so many foundation or shoring contractors on oil and gas projects. But if you say were to select transport and construction, and you download the data, then in the roles tab on the, and maybe just let me perhaps just share my screen very quickly. On the roles tab, you can see my screen. You can see here, you can choose role, and if there is a particular foundation or shoring contractor, then you will have that option to select it. Now, I've got oil and gas, so I don't really have those roles available in this download. But if you were to do civil construction, then you would certainly see many foundation contractors on there, and you can select it like that. The other option you have is that you can go onto the website, perhaps, Kareem, if you...
Yeah, sure.
Web page.
So let me just share you. So the other option, Warren, is that you can go here to the companies tab.
Yes, you can go to companies tab. You can certainly do that, or you can select roles on the left-hand side.
Exactly.
And select the foundation contractor.
So here in roles, you can see it. And then you can go here under contractors to get more specific, right? You can just take the foundation constructor. And after you click the foundation contractor, you can go up here and refine your data more, as we discussed. Like, for example, let's take a specific thing as a location. Take oil and gas and construction and all of the active projects. As soon as we click apply here, Warren, it will reflect these roles in front of you with the companies, how many projects, and the value of the project that they are having right now. And as we mentioned, if you click in any of these companies, it will take you to the company profile where you can dig deeper into the projects associated to this company. Yeah, hope we answered the question, and just you can send another question if you want as well. Should we move on to the next question, Ed?
Yes, thank you very much for that, Kareem. I hope that answers your question. And of course, again, at the risk of repeating ourselves, if you don't, if you want more clarity on how to use the service, if there are any questions or clarifications you require, then please speak to your account manager at any time, or our customer success team. We have a dedicated team to answer your questions and make sure that you are making the most of the product and your subscription. So at any time, please come to us for any questions that you might have, additional training and so on. Okay, so I've got a few more questions here, which will attempt to answer. One question here is, can you resource data for the projects not listed in your data bank? Now, if I'm interpreting the question correctly, that is, can we get information on projects that are missing on the database? Now, we don't, I hope, we have almost every project on the system, but in the rest circumstances that we don't, then absolutely write to us, speak to your account manager, outlining what project you think is not there, and we will do our best to obtain information on that project. And likewise with existing projects, if there's information you feel you want to obtain or that is not there, then please use the contact researcher tool, or speak to your account manager again, and we will try to get the information that you require. And whether that's missing projects or specs or contacts or particular roles, then use the contact researcher tool to do so, or speak to us directly. Okay. Another question. Are you providing data on requirements of perimeter surveillance intrusion detection system of project owners? Now, this is a kind of question we get quite frequently, not this specific question, but we do get questions quite frequently on very specific elements of projects. And while MEED Projects covers a huge amount of data and projects and specifications and capacities of projects, it's not possible, unfortunately, for us to be able to cover every specific aspect of every single project. So I hope you can understand our position on that, but something like that, which is very specific, perimeter surveillance, is unfortunately not something we can provide on a wholesale basis. However, if on an occasional project by project basis you do need that information, then please submit your query and we can try our best to see what we can do in that particular instance. But as a matter of routine, it's not something that we unfortunately can provide. Another question is there a menu where a product-wise portion can be explored? I'm not 100% clear on the question itself, so please feel free to expand on that. But if you're asking about the capacities of a particular project, then yes, that can be found within the profile. You can also go to the export fields tab. Perhaps, Kareem, you could highlight the product additional fields to export function.
Yeah, let me just share the screen. So coming again to the projects tab, more down here. Let's just as well set any example so that we just decrease a bit the data. So the menu that Ed meant is this one down here, when you can customize the information in your Excel sheet. So you can have the different data points. I believe that the product sheet is already there as the one that Ed was explaining, the capacities of the project. So because it's already pre-selected by default, you can just simply click apply. You don't need to add it every time. And then you download to Excel from here, save it. And as soon as you click in the Excel sheet, if you are looking for the products, let me just show it from here. You can go directly to the sheet here. Just widen it. This one, which is products, project with products down here. Where you can see the project name and the outcome of the project based on the type of the product and the quantity here, so that you can actually control that. I hope this answers your question as well.
Yes, thank you, Kareem.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got one more question, and I've saved this one to last because it's perhaps the trickiest and lengthiest one to try and answer. And that is, what is the difference between contract value, net project value, estimated budget value, and cash spend? And that's an excellent question, and one that we get asked very frequently. Now, I'll answer the two of them first. So cash spend is essentially the cash flow. So that's how much cash has already been spent on a project based on the formula applied for the cash flow on that particular project based on the start date and the end date. So that's basically what expenditure has already been made on that particular project. The budget value is literally just the budget value of that project. So if you take NEOM, for example, the budget value of NEOM is $500 billion. If you take, say, a small office building, the estimated budget for that project is $20 million, for example. And that's a static number that lasts from the lifetime of the project, regardless of the stage. That's basically how much that project cost, will cost, has cost. That's a static figure. Now, you wouldn't use in your analysis the budget number for any other reason other than just to understand the cost of the project. And likewise, cash spent would be simply to understand the amount of money already spent on an awarded project. Now, those two are simpler to explain. The other two are a little bit more complex. I'll start with contract value. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this webinar, contract value only applies to awarded contracts and projects, and contracts and projects which are what we call standalone projects, which are not master plan projects with lots of children projects under them, just for those single packages or contracts which are being awarded. And that is the basic value of the main contract, construction contract for that particular package or project. And so when I'm looking historically, I would only use contract value. I don't have to worry about master plan projects or any other projects values, because only awarded standalone projects have a contract value. So as a basic rule of thumb, if I'm using historical analysis, then I use contract value. So then the question is, what is net project value? And this is where it gets quite complex, and I would certainly recommend a more in-depth conversation with your customer success team or account manager to understand a bit more about this. So net project value was created in order to avoid double counting of budget values on projects. Now let's take NEOM as a good case in point. NEOM has an announced estimated budget of $500 billion. And under NEOM, as a master plan, there are going to be hundreds of individual contracts and packages. Now, if each one of those has an average of $100 million, and there is 100 of those individual projects, then the estimated budget for them and NEOM will be far in excess of $500 billion. And that will create problems because it will exaggerate the future value of a market. So what a net project does is net project value takes the estimated budget value, and it subtracts from that the individual value of the children projects under that parent master plan. So for example, NEOM will have a budget value of $500 billion, but its net project value will be far less, maybe $400 billion. And that's because the sum of the children profiles under NEOM total at least $100 billion. So every time we're adding a child profile under the NEOM project master plan, then the net project value of that master plan will reduce. And so ideally, we are working towards a net project value of 0 for every major master plan project, as all the children projects are applied to that. So I hope you're following me so far. So what that means is that when I'm forecasting or looking at the future pipeline, by using net project value, I'm ensuring that we are not duplicating or double counting the values of both the parent master plan and the children profiles under it. And that's essentially why I should only use net project value when taking into account future projects and when aggregating current under execution and future projects. Now that really is just a very brief explanation of net project value. There are much more further nuances to it, and I would certainly suggest speaking to your customer success manager and your account manager to get more information on when we would use it and what it exactly means. But for the purposes of this webinar, I think that's probably as much as I can go into at this stage. Okay, so I think that's the end. Unless we get any more questions, which I don't think we will, I think that brings us to the end of the questions. Kareem, perhaps you'd like to, any last words to say to people before we close off the webinar?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ed, for your efforts and the clarification. I would like to thank you all guys for joining us today. It's the first milestone of the training webinars. We're sure that we'll keep doing that to get you better in using MEED Projects platform. So yeah, we'll keep in touch. Thanks a lot for that. And as Ed stressed out, we can always be in contact with the customer success manager for more in-depth session about the analysis or any other features. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll look forward to doing this again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.